All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call to order the Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll? Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Senator Goycochea. Senator Nguyen. Assemblyman Watts. Chair Harris.
Please go ahead and mark Assemblyman Hafen present when he arrives. We actually have 5 budgets on the agenda today, all from the Department of Public Safety. I believe we have our director, Mr. Togliatti, with us in the South, in Las Vegas. Hello. I'm going to go ahead and invite you on up, or whoever you have with you who will be here in Carson City as well. Come on down. It's a party. That's right. That's right. All right, so here's how we are going to have this work. Director Togliatti, I'm going to turn it over to you. We will go through each budget in succession. Of course, I'll allow you to have whoever you'd like to speak on each one of those. And then the committee will have questions after each budget item, and then we will do a public comment at the end of the meeting. If everybody's okay with that, Director Togliatti, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, committee members. We have in Carson City my Deputy Director, Sherry Bergerman, and also our senior fiscal person, who is Curtis Palmer, and they will basically be leading the presentation on all of the budget items. We do have some subject matter experts also up in Carson City, and in Las Vegas we have subject matter experts also in Las Vegas who will be able to answer any specific questions regarding any pieces of the budget that may be of interest. Also at the table in Carson City is our Public Information Officer, Kim Smith, and I will now turn it over to I believe Curtis.
Thank you, Director, and good morning.
And sir, I'll just, at the outset, remind everyone to go ahead and state their name for the record. Unfortunately, you have to do it each and every time you speak, or it becomes a bit complicated to transcribe afterwards. So with that.
Thank you. So my name is Curtis Palmer. I am the ASO4 for the Department of Public Safety in the Director's Office. The slide that you're seeing here first is a picture, a artistic rendering of the proposed CIP project 23-P01, which is a rendering of the new proposed Department of Public Safety headquarters building. Last biennium, this body funded the preliminary planning study and concept design for this building. The next phase would be architectural plans that would be developed in fiscal year 24-25, and then funding of the actual construction is potentially for the 26-27 biennium. Just wanted to make that mention to you. Pardon me.
And Mr. Palmer, I'll just invite you to jump right on into the budget item. We can start with 4706.
Yes, thank you. Again, Curtis Palmer for the record. So just a little bit about the Director's Office and where we stand with the Department of Public Safety. So the title, State Police, includes all sworn officers in the department from the Highway Patrol, from Investigation Division, from Parole and Probation, Capitol Police, State Fire Marshal, Office of Professional Responsibility, the Dignitary Protection Detail, Training Division, and so forth. And more generally, the supportive functions behind the officers like dispatch, fiscal operations, administrative staff, PSI writers, the warrants team, and many other functions. And we're all proud to work for the Department of Public Safety, State Police. This slide is just a picture, a snapshot of our chiefs and administrators for the department. We also provide, the Director's Office also provides supporting administrative support roles for the Parole Board and the Department of Sentencing Policy. Just a quick mention on our staffing. While the Director's Office does not have any street-facing sworn officers in our budget, we would like to make it known to this body that we are, at the Director's Office, very concerned with our ability to attract and retain sufficient levels of sworn officers. One of the most cited reasons for officers leaving early is due to pay disparity with city and county agencies. This chart shows separated versus higher ratio since 2017, so as you can see, the trend is not favorable. Likewise, we also have concerns for our civilian staff. We struggle to fill vacant positions, and many times when we do, they leave as soon as possible to get the next promotion and promote, which leaves us in a very peculiar situation in trying to cover some of those vacant positions. So the Director's Office is housed in Budget Account 4706. We maintain two offices, one in the north and one in the south. The Director's Office establishes policy for the department, provides general direction, works with our assigned DAG on legal issues, provide fiscal oversight, timekeeping, payroll services, contract oversight, public records oversight. And that is a picture of our org chart of our fiscal team. On the next slide is our HR functions, which serves in recruitment, employee relations, backgrounds, and a host of other related activities. So with that, we'll go into our first enhancement unit, which is a contract with State Library and Archives. The software solution will assist the agency in significantly reducing the number of documents printed, nearly eliminate the dependency on traditional filing cabinets, which frees up office space for better efficiency, reduces the time employees spend on searching for documents, eliminates the need to send paper files or scanning documents, and emailing documents back and forth between offices. The department has been working with Library and Archives on a digital solution for document management, and they are currently using and recommend the ON-Base product. I understand this is in negotiation and being reissued or re-upped with state purchasing at this time. But the DPS proposal is that we'll be rolling out this solution to divisions and expanding to others as we learn more about the uses and benefits of this digital document management system. The department intends to move all DPS divisions to digital storage for most of its paper documents using ON-Base or other tools. You'll find similar decision units in 7 of our budgets this biennium, and the rest would follow. Just as a side note, I counted yesterday, the Director's Office has 65 cabinets, filing cabinets, that I believe that we would be able to access with the successful implementation of this program. On this slide, I've grouped 3 proposals together. One is the kind of the standard E710, equipment replacement, computers and so forth. E712 is radio replacement, and DOT is moving to a new radio system, and so this is part of that movement. And then the final decision unit there is for the maintenance of those new radios. The new system and radios that are being implemented do require some regular calibration and servicing, and it requires some specialized equipment. And that equipment will be housed in the Highway Patrol Division with their fleet services, since a lot of the radio equipment and so forth are installed in vehicles. So as they service vehicles, they'll be able to provide that regular calibration and so forth. And so this decision unit is cost allocated, but the funds go back to Highway Patrol so that they can purchase the equipment and maintain our radio equipment as it comes online. Our next slide is the Joint Emergency Training Institute facility, and there are 2 enhancements related to this item. The Joint Emergency Training Institute, or JETI as it's known, will initially be used to supplement the in-service training of current DPS officers with realistic scenarios, with the ability for officers to interact with other agencies on multi-agency training and provide better, more cohesive, area-wide emergency response. The facility will also be used to provide better training for our cadets with realistic environment under controlled circumstances. This will supplement the current course of training provided to our cadets. We have started using the jetty facilities for instructor-level training, such as MACTAC, TASER training, and Banacle training. We're currently working out plans to use the facility for continued education and refining skills for our officers. We'll continue to utilize firearm ranges. The department attempted to build our own ranges in the previous year. However, as we started going down that road, quotes for construction costs made it an impractical and improbable venture, and so we canceled the building of our own ranges. But we'll continue to use those of Metro. There is, the deck unit E382 is providing for annual maintenance fees that would be associated with the jetty. The second enhancement, one shot, is E888, which is a $2 million request, again for one shot that will be used towards the completion of the build-out of the interior building that is already built. And we have some conceptual design and plans that we could share that show some of that configuration if you're interested. So the $2 million one-shot ask is a match for, let me just see here, hang on. The match for the, or not match, is for the build-out of the building, which would allow the real-world environments that officers face every day for the reality-based training. Along with this $2 million request, we're in negotiations with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department that would allow us a 20-year relationship with them to be able to continue to use the jetty, and along with our maintenance fees of the $96,000 annually. The facilities have been constructed physically. They are up and operational with the exception of some of the build-out that needs to happen on the interior, but it's a wonderful facility, and we would extend an invitation to all of you if you would like to get on tour that at some point and see some of the state-of-the-art facilities and the events that are going on there. So if you just contact us, we'll make sure we get that arranged for you and provide that tour. So the jetty project, just as a side note, has been funded by private donations to the Metropolitan Police Department Foundation, and so no public funds have been used in the construction of those buildings. Our next decision unit, E227, is regarding temporary staffing. Temporary staffing have been hired and used for a few months at a time, and currently the director's office has 5 vacancies and 1 temporary contractor assisting with the administration and supporting backgrounds. We anticipate the need to continue for additional help as the division struggle to maintain positions in the civilian side of our operations. As an example, we recently had 2 ASOs leave the Department of, the Parole and Probation Division, and so we're supplementing those positions with our own director's office staff, and have interviews tomorrow to try to fill some of those positions. If that is unsuccessful, then we will be looking at bringing on some additional temporary help to continue assisting them as we fill those voids. Our next decision in E228 is kind of some odds and ends for the director's office. Primary purposes are for the ongoing contract for social archive of our social media platforms within the Department of Public Safety, a recommendation from our DAG that we implemented a little bit ago, and an ongoing contract with our National Testing Network, which provides testing for our sworn position applicants, kind of an aptitude and viability for success in the law enforcement field. E241 is our public records request software tracking. This continues to fund our public records request software system. It's a critical system used to manage the the requests that come to the department for public record requests. The system includes the following: online portal linked to the DPS website for anyone to file a public records request, the ability to assign public records to the appropriate division within the department for completion. It sends automatic responses to the requester that department has received the request. It contains templates and ability for responding to public records requests, including extensions, fulfillment, etc. The ability to track the number of requests in a specific time range, format, track time spent fulfilling the request, the history of each request, the online portal for the requester to obtain the requested materials. The chart that is shown there on that slide shows that our public records request has been increasing year over year, and we expect that trend to continue. So this is a vital piece of software to help us maintain and track and control those public records requests. So the next two slides are regarding a restructuring of sorts within the director's office. And so this next little bit is just sort of some foundational discussion on that. So this slide it shows the restructuring concept for a small portion of the Department of Public Safety within the director's office. There are 4 E900 deck units that transfers 9 positions from collectively from Highway Patrol and RCCD to the director's office, forming a department team of technology and support related PCNs with the technology to assist with technology throughout the department. Historically, DPS had its own technology bureau. The bulk of the bureau was transferred to EATS in the 2013-2015 biennium as a pilot project towards statewide consolidation. The concept of EATS providing full service to the department has been a challenge over the years, I think largely due to miscommunication and to poorly described or clarified expectations. However, the working relationship between EATS and DPS is now the best that it ever has been at least since the transfer of our IT staff over to EATS. And we do want that relationship to continue. However, EATS cannot do everything for DPS, nor should they. The DPS business process analyst and technical related positions are scattered throughout the department and do some specific tasks and processes. However, these positions only serve their assigned division or agency. The challenge of the project management or monitoring process from the agency side of the house is not been consistent throughout the department. Some have resources, most do not. The effort being made with these E900 decision units is to bring some balance to the department and bring these skills and talents together in a single unit and serve the entire department. By consolidating these talents, greater efficiencies are created and department-wide initiatives can be more effective. So in this next slide then is the proposed E900 decision units. Again, there are 4 of them. The request in the current budget proposal involves a small number of positions to be transferred to a new structure called the Research and Planning Technology Group within the Director's Office. If approved, this new group is a building platform to establish operational processes. As the team develops and becomes embedded in this new expanded role, additional transfers or new positions may be requested based on identified needs. Initially, the Research and Planning Technology Group will be organized into 3 main groups with specific responsibilities over the radio maintenance and updates, operational application maintenance, technology inventory and update planning, research and planning for innovative technology, and implementing and training. Success will start out of the box by organizing the efforts to be department-wide. Support for radios, body cameras, technical systems support the whole department, not just 1 or 2 divisions. The personnel will continue to supply services to the originating agency, but will work more efficiently as a team, thereby increasing their capacity to be able to provide these services to the whole department. This change does not impact the parole and probation OTIS replacement, nor does it impact the RCCD and CJIS modernization programs that are now in effect. we don't want to disrupt what they have going so well at this point. The best part of this proposal is that we are not asking for increased funding. We're just simply rearranging some of the chairs on the ship. So, and our final decision unit for consideration is the request of 2 new personnel technicians in the human resource team. The new positions will allow for current personnel technicians to focus on auditing, processing of employee transactions, and ensure compliance and eliminate errors, and create a professional ladder to help keep trained staff and assist with non-delegated recruitments. This will free up recruiters to spend 100% of their time on sworn candidates. Our personnel staff have consistent turnover due to low pay and lack of a promotional ladder. So DPS has 9 people that have filled the personnel tech 2 positions since 2013. None of the incumbents have promoted within the Department of Public Safety. From February 22 to from February of 22 to February of 23, the DPS personnel technicians have processed over 4,000 employee transactions, have had over 800 sent back with the need for correction. So we definitely need a little bit more help there in being able to cover that up or to be able to process those accurately. From 2021 to 2023, we had 575 non-delegated recruitments. The department assists with keeping up changes and updates to labor agreements. They also assist with the preparation of documents and records required of the department for contract negotiations, meetings, and negotiations with employees and labor negotiations. In particular, the union CBAs contain a variable pay information for each union, as well as variable pay in DPS policy. DPS is unique in that we have employees who fall under both ASME and MPU. A recent example of changes of keeping up with the collective bargaining agreement during the grievance process, it was identified that DPS was not paying holiday pay correctly since July of 2021, and that has been corrected. Currently, we utilize NEATS to submit grievances. While NEATS does identify the employee as part of a collective bargaining agreement, it does not provide notice or grievances that are routed through the labor unions and where we're at in that process, so that is something else that has to be manually kind of maintained at this point. And with that is a quick overview of our budgets. We're happy to answer any of your questions. We have, as the director said, a team of subject matter experts available to help us answer your questions. So.
Okay, Mr. Palmer, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Just a heads up for you, we are going to ask our questions in a little bit of a different order than the presentation was given.
No problem.
So I will first be taking questions on the planning technology team. And then we'll move to the personnel technicians and then the jetty. Then the evidence tech. And maybe some additional questions sprinkled throughout. Okay? So, members, do we have any questions on the new research and planning technology team? Senator Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair. It's my understanding that there was like a movement, or we had tried to, or your department had tried to transfer the Department of Public Safety staff to the Enterprise IT Services, and that was intended to be like a consolidation to operate more smoothly. And it sounds like that hasn't been ideal for everyone involved. And it's my understanding that, when I'm looking at the governor recommendations about centralizing under the research and planning technology team, I'm just wondering if you can kind of discuss maybe some of the challenges that were faced by the department with the IT services provided by the Division of Enterprise IT Services, and whether or not this new recommendation from the governor about the research and planning technology team would assist in addressing those challenges.
That is a long question. Curtis Palmer again for the record. So, without going into a lot of history, yes, we transferred, as was mentioned, the bulk of our IT staff over to EAT several years ago. There was some, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some assumptions on our side of what EAT would be doing for us, and there were some assumptions on their side of what they would be doing for us. The two didn't exactly match, and so it wasn't a lovely marriage from the outset. There were some problems. The the communication and so forth, back and forth, the pay, services that were provided and so forth, priorities of our projects versus priorities that they were now dealing with throughout the state were not in line, in sync with each other and so forth. So there were some issues and concerns. We have been working through that over the years. I think the relationship, as I mentioned, is better than it ever has been. We actually recently did a partner satisfaction survey that if you'd like a copy, I'm sure we can get that to you, that shows that the satisfaction, at least as far as DPS personnel goes, is very high as far as the service that EATS is providing to us. However, EATS can't do everything for us, nor should they. And so this consolidation is actually, as I mentioned, rearranging some of the chairs on the ship to help us better utilize the staff that we do have. Not everyone has the ability to implement and fulfill some of our technology needs, and so by bringing this together, it helps the department to better able to spread this technology love, if you will, throughout the department, and allows us to be able to better utilize some of our own services and technologies within.
Sherry Brigham for the record. It also helped that our two large projects, CGIS modernization and our Otis project, were taken off the table with EATS, and we have hired our own management systems and implementers to handle those projects. So relieving them of those large products, which were largely off the shelf, definitely eased a lot of the pain. So I think our goal would be to be able to better manage our own systems, in that we have the people necessary to analyze all the business processes to determine what the best solution might be. Thank you.
May I follow up? Given this kind of reorganization, is there enough staff to be able to do this reorganization? Like, it seems like there needs to be more people in addition to the reorganization itself.
Ideally, certainly, we would have more people, a manager, for instance, of the group. Sherry Brigham for the record, I'm sorry. Curtis is technology inclined, unlike myself. So he would probably be heading up this group in terms of taking care of each individual division, assigning them a group of divisions to keep tabs on and to communicate up to smooth that process along so we can prioritize whatever funding we do have to take care of those divisions. That's as far as we can go this division, biennium. Ideally, we would have a little bit more technology. We would never want to, for instance, manage our own email or manage any of our servers or digital software. There's just so much that we wouldn't do, the backbone of the state. What we would want to be involved in and handle would be those business practices and processes that require any kind of technological enhancements. And if we don't have our own group to handle that, then the priority level continues to drop and fall behind. And we found very, very successful opportunities here by using outside contractors to manage the incoming projects. And we're doing very well in CGIS Mod. And although we had a bump with Otis, we got rid of the first vendor and got a new vendor, and they're right on track. So we seem to be able to do better with our specific law enforcement specific systems that don't serve any other part of the state agencies.
Thank you.
Do committee members have any additional questions on the new research and planning technology team? Okay, so then we'll just move right along to the two new personnel technicians, E301. Are there any committee members that have questions on this unit? Chair Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So you did give us a little bit of details on the impact of collective bargaining and some of the grievance processes, but could you just tell us a little bit more about how the implementation of collective bargaining has impacted the workload of your HR? And I think also you did mention that there are different kind of bargaining units and different different entities representing those bargaining units. And just kind of for the benefit of myself and other members of the committee, just give us a little bit of additional background, because we know that collective bargaining is, fairly recently implemented, and so just kind of giving us a rundown of the groups and where things have gone, and then the impacts that's had on your HR.
Sherry Brigham for the record. There are a lot of things that have impacted our HR staff. Obviously, COVID was the first knockdown issue. The bargaining units with regards to our officers, the difficulty has is in regards to the CBA that wasn't 100% funded. It wasn't funded at all last biennium. And that has caused some significant concerns among all of our officers. And those officers would normally go through the grievance system in order to get those concerns relieved. But the grievance system isn't set up for that purpose. And I believe 289 handles it separately. Our expertise in our employees in our HR are not in employer relationships with unions. It just isn't. And at the time, and I believe it's still the case, the Department of Personnel wanted to handle all of that. And they have separated operations from that, and they're handling at a different level. So when we have a question or an issue, we need to go through the Department of Personnel in order to get that question or issue handled. And things continue to change as we learn more and more and more. And as a result, we just don't have enough staff that I personally am involved in every single one of the decisions. Because we don't have a standard, we don't have anything quite in writing yet. And part of that is because of the CBA that was not legislatively approved last biennium. But part of it is just changing from a different structure. We also have the ASME group that is also one of our contracts, and we are even less familiar with the changes there. But each one of them has different financial benefits to each employee, and our systems in place to the state just aren't there to manage it. Each one as it comes up to our attention has to be managed almost individually. And we are dealing with the old NEATS state system of personnel and the new Smart 21. And they don't like each other very much, and neither do the rules that our NACs require work with Smart 21, because it's created an off-the-shelf product that is relying on management to make the decisions as you go through it, not with outside parties like the budget office or IT or personnel chiming in. So because of that, and because of the slowdown in the implementation of Smart 21, that has created all kinds of problems. In the very beginning, when Smart 21 started, we had employees who were not being paid properly for months and months and months. Their transfers weren't happening properly. It took us forever to try and clean that up and find ways to streamline it. Part of the streamlining was keeping our staff long enough to train them and then get it in process, and then only to find that they're being promoted because there's no staff in the state in human resources, so they can move right along the line very quickly. So this proposal was intended to help us mitigate those problems by taking off some of the everyday type of work from our recruiters, who are personnel ones, I believe, and lowering those expectations to a technician two. That way, our normal recruitments for state positions that are the same throughout the state, ASOs, admins, that sort of thing, they still have to go through our system. We still have to wait for DERM to approve a recruitment, whether it's internally or to a department or division or whatever. But Smart 21 doesn't work that way, and Smart 21 isn't built with all the job descriptions inside of them, with all the requirements inside. So all of that is separate, and we have been trying for these past several years to make them work together. So I know they do have a plan, and we'll see if that works. But in the meantime, we need help. And the one thing I can say is that regardless of all those obstacles in our path, is that if we had a two, that would be between the one that we do have, which is our entry level, and the next level is a personnel, a three. Then we could at least move our person who has been trained into a higher level position and fill that with the new person and have the higher level position train the new person. And our continuity would obviously make a huge difference in the information that we lose on a regular basis.
Thank you very much. That's a very helpful context, and I'll withhold any comments on the Smart 21 project.
Additional questions? Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And that last answer did clarify a few things for me. However, I believe in the same area, you're also asking for a human resource office, you're trying to. The office is currently facing a pretty significant backlog. It sounds like. I mean, during the presentation, you said that there are 4,000 applications and 20% were being sent back. It sounds like 800. And then also with this information about the ability, it sounds like, to work with the different bargaining units and figuring those things out. How would this new position possibly help with the backlog? And would it also help possibly being a point person? Because it sounds like you're having to do everything. So the way that you are envisioning this with this new human resource area be the one that is part of the collective bargaining agreements discussions, or would this still be in the same area?
Sherry Brigham for the record. No, these new positions would remove the duties from higher level positions that are fairly well structured and less subjective decision making. So that those positions would be freed up to help the next line, which is our personnel officers 2 and 3. So our personnel manager would then she's doing a number of things that she shouldn't have to do either. She would be much more involved in labor relations, et cetera. By pushing these duties down, her number twos could take over those duties because they could continue to push those other duties that are less subjective, less decision-making, down to a lower level where it ought to be.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. And I would also like to be able to follow up with you a little bit more about the labor relations discussions, but I think that's a little bit more in depth. So if we could have that discussion another time, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Sherry Brigham for the record, you are welcome.
Of course. Are there any additional questions on this particular? Yes, Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Chair. Did you say that even holiday pay has been not paid correctly for like over a year?
Sherry Brigham for the record. It has come to our attention that in the CBA there is a paragraph that suggests that an officer who works on a holiday will be paid for every hour that they work. And that is true, and they are. The next sentence, or the next part of that sentence, says something like, even if they aren't working. So, and I know what they meant to say is based on whatever their schedule was. If they're a 10-hour shift, they should get 10 hours of holiday day pay off, not on, meaning that our NAC allows for, our NRS allows for 8 hours holiday pay for everybody. So some of our employees work 10-hour shifts 4 days a week. That's kind of a trade-off. But then when they get a holiday, they are only getting 8 hours of pay when they take that day off or when they happen to be off, to compensate them. And so it seems to them that that's not right or fair, because they have to supplement their 8-hour day with 2 hours of annual leave or comp time or work 2 hours or something to get it up to their 10-hour shift. Or what we do in many other cases is change their shifts to 8 hours for that week, and then they get the whole 8 hours taken care of, but only 2 days off. So there has been this attempt to get that fixed through that CBA. And the understanding I had, and this is my error, possibly, was that all economic issues with regard to the CBA were not approved because legislature did not get a chance to approve the CBA. So I have denied those arguments for the last year when it went into effect. And I am now looking at it from their point of view, and I'm waiting for final decision from labor relations and the state personnel to make that decision. But if that is the case, we have plenty of savings for vacancies to take care of it, and we will immediately and frankly, happily take care of it.
Seems like very complicated, but something that needs to be fixed.
Yes,
Thank you.
Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up to that, you're not the only agency that works 410, so this is probably something that needs to be addressed across the budget. Thank you.
Okay, we will go ahead and move on to the jetty. And just a note for members, we are almost about an hour in and we've got 5 budgets. We're still on the first one. So just a pacing note for anyone who's out there listening. Any questions on jetty? That would be E32. Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, training and development is my wheelhouse and something I'm passionate about. So this one in particular piques my interest. You talked a little bit about the current development process with regard to the Joint Emergency Training Institute and its facilities. I'm curious to know, can you give us a little bit more detail? What's the status to completion for this? And then I do have one follow-up after that.
Thank you for the question. Curtis Palmer for the record. If I might, I would like to punt this down south. And down south we have Captain Scott Stunkel and Sergeant Jacob Fisher, who are intimately aware of and deal with that on a regular basis. So if I could ask those two gentlemen to address the question and any follow-ups you may have, that would be fantastic.
Good morning, ma'am. Sergeant Jacob Fisher for the record. As far as the completion and or the status of the jetty, are you able to hear me, Madam Chair?
You're nailing it.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. As far as the completion, Building 1 or Phase 1 of the jetty is operational and complete. That houses the majority of the foundational operational offices for all of the office and training staff. For the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department full-time training component, as well as some of the ancillary agencies that are there, housed full-time, such as Clark County Fire Department and North Las Vegas. Building 2 is completion as far as the shell of the building, but there's nothing that is housed within that training unit and or building itself. So as Curtis Palmer had mentioned earlier this morning in the presentation, some of the real-world training opportunities that would be available to our staff within Building 2 and or Phase 2, if you look at the build-out for the jetty, there's nothing that's within that building yet. So it's just waiting to be completed as far as the funding component goes. But the Building 1 houses all of the offices, all of the administrative staff, the majority of the defensive tactics or officer safety training components, large amounts of classrooms, multiple hangars for the MACTAC unit, an opportunity for medical training. All of that is in completion, and our staff has had the opportunity to utilize that since we had the sign-off currently earlier last year.
Follow-up, Madam Chair. Thank you for that detail. Very interesting. I'd love to be able to continue to see the progress on the jetty and anticipated dates where you can move into building 2. I'd really like to learn more about that. Can you tell me, why is the department's, why is your use so limited? And then if this budget line item is approved, are you going to gain more access? Is the maintenance fee approved going to increase the amount of time and access you have to this facility as where you are currently?
Thank you. Again, Curtis Palmer for the record. So certainly as the sergeant had mentioned, with the additional funding to be able to build out the interior of Building 2, that will gain more access to training opportunities within there. One of the problems that these decision units solves for us, as I'd mentioned, is the ranges. In addition to the training for real-life world experiences, we also have firearm ranges that we need to address. And as I mentioned, the construction costs last year proved to be just astronomical. It just was not feasible for us to even try to continue that. And so the current position and negotiations we have with Las Vegas Metro Police Department is that we will be able to have access to not only the jetty facility and all of its wonderful opportunities to train there, but we will also tie into that the ability to continue using their ranges for our staff. And as that continues to grow and develop, we will still be able to maintain that access to that. So I think at this point, any perceived restrictions we may have is probably just because it's being phased in and we're slowly developing and growing into that. So I believe that will develop over time, and this funding that is being requested, especially the ones out, will be able to help us facilitate that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you have adequate access to be able to train your officers and other personnel to continue our safe communities. Thanks very much, Madam Chair.
No problem. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. I want to talk about the meeting from December 9th from the Interim Finance Committee, where we approved construction on the dedicated Department of Public Safety's firearm ranges and the Joint Training Institute. Can you give us an update on where we are with that project?
Yes, absolutely. Again, Curtis Palmer for the record. That was the funding that I had talked about just a moment ago. We started down that road as we had the initial surveys and different pre-planning activities going on and getting quotes and bids. The situation and the environment post-COVID, right there at the cusp of that, was the construction was just astronomical. It went from, and I don't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but it went from something that was conceivable, some interest built in there to help with some inflation costs, and it came back. And I'm looking back at John. The actual quote that came back was what, 3 or 4 times what we were. $1.9 million was to build those, and that they weren't willing to guarantee that. That was just a snapshot in time. Likely would increase as we actually got into the construction, and it just wasn't something that we felt we could justify in paying that kind of money when before it was substantially less. So we discontinued that opportunity and have negotiated some other arrangements with Metro. So, thank you.
Thank you for your answer.
Any additional questions on the jetty project? Okay, we will relieve you of your duty unless you are also covering the evidence vault. Oh. Okay, we'll go ahead and then jump into budget account 201-4701. Which is the evidence vault. And for the sake of time, I'm hoping you can really just focus on this new evidence technician position. We'll just get right down to the nitty-gritty, and then allow members to ask questions as they have them.
Sherry Brigham, Deputy Director for the record. I'd like to introduce Lori Renfro. She is our Senior Evidence Manager, and she's done wonderful things for us, and this is her first opportunity to present a budget, and I'd like her to be able to answer those questions. Thank you.
Good morning, Lori Renfro for the record. All right, so we'll just jump right into the Decision Unit E350 in regards to funding a property and evidence technician to manage digital evidence. Just a brief background, our division was created in 2011 to centralize the storage and management of evidence. And as times change, so does the types of evidence collected. What we would hope to do is to provide a consistent and secure storage of digital evidence. And to do that, to effectively manage the new format of evidence, we request a digital evidence technician to be added to our division. Evidence will not handle public records requests, and we will only disseminate information requested for law enforcement purposes. So I'm going to kind of get into a little bit more here, sorry. You might want to know what digital evidence is considered. We consider information stored or transmitted in a digital format. Types of digital evidence may include data downloaded from electronic devices such as computers, cell phones, and body cams. We do not consider physical items such as cell phones or USB drives to be considered digital evidence. I'm going to do a little breakdown on our evidence technician roles. The digital evidence technician will process digital file types such as digital information downloaded from the electronic devices, verify data entry is correct in the digital evidence management system, and maintain chain of custody and ensure integrity of the digital files. They will facilitate dissemination as requested for law enforcement purposes only, and ensure that retention schedules and purging of data meets guidelines. Our property and evidence technicians currently process physical evidence daily and ensure package and labels are correct and maintain the integrity of the chain of custody, coordinate movement of evidence to lab or court, or return or dispose of the property once all our obligations are met. Both positions will be cross-trained. Sorry. Do you have any questions so far? I'm sorry.
Nope, I'm going to let you go all the way through. I promise.
Thanks.
I promise we don't have many questions for you that I'm aware of, so you're doing great.
Just so you know, currently our the digital evidence is being managed by each state police division. It is not currently under the purview of our department. However, we feel that should be to maintain consistency. Our property and evidence technicians are certified. We receive training by the International Association of Property and Evidence. We have to take a exam, and which ensures a working knowledge of evidence management, and we get the certification, as you see up there. We also have to maintain proficiency and certification in the criminal justice information systems. We are responsible for returning firearms to owners, and that requires access to the criminal justice information to complete a background check. And that's all I have really on the digital evidence position. I had a whole, thank you.
No, thank you. That was awesome. I have a question. How would the addition of this position to serve as a dedicated digital evidence technician just kind of overall benefit the operations of the evidence vault?
Lori Renfro for the record. The digital evidence technician will help manage just the digital evidence portion of it. Right now we have 5 evidence technicians and myself running the department. We have 3 vaults located statewide, and we have a large inventory of items that we process daily. In order to make sure that the digital evidence portion of it is handled correctly and efficiently, we would ask that we have a technician that is trained specifically for that area. They would be able to ensure that the digital evidence has not been manipulated in any way, be able to disseminate and keep records.
Thank you. Senator Nguyen?
Thank you. How many of those digital evidence requests does the agency process each fiscal year? If you know.
Curtis Palmer for the record. As Ms. Renfro had indicated, currently the digital evidence is kind of spread throughout the department, and so we really don't have a good handle or grasp on that. That is one of the purposes for this new position, is to kind of bring that all in-house and be able to maintain custody records and so forth to bring that together. So at this point, we really don't know what we're getting into entirely. So
That answered my follow-up question, so thank you.
Senator Goycochea?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be very brief, but could you just kind of walk through this real quickly? Exactly what counties, I'm assuming most of the rural jurisdictions are the ones that are bringing this evidence to you, and, that time frame. How many, what are we storing, how much? Just give me a brief handle on that, where it's coming from, and what kind of workload we're looking at.
Lori Renfro for the record. Senator, are you referring to our physical property we're currently storing, or our digital? Because we aren't storing any digital at the moment.
Yes, I know you're on the digital, but I assume you got to have the physical in order to digitize it. So just kind of give me a brief feel for that workload.
So this is our slide here on our inventory currently. As you can see, in Las Vegas, we currently have about 32,500 items we're storing. In our Reno evidence vault, we have approximately 15,500 items. And then in our Elko vault, we have 5,200 items. So the way our department works is we have 3 main vaults located throughout the state, and we take in evidence from all the state police agencies for all the counties in Nevada. So they get transported in, and we store them in temporary locations until they can get transported.
So then I assume most of Elko would have northeastern, probably clear to Humboldt. Vegas would have my southern counties, and just trying to get a feel for that workload. We need to know how much you're digitizing. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions here on the evidence vault? Okay, not seeing any. We will relieve some of you of your duty. And we'll go ahead and turn to budget account 101-3743, which is the investigations division. And if we can, I'd like to start by focusing on the Safe Voice program.
Good morning. Ryan Miller for the Investigation Division. I am the Chief of the Investigation Division. As it relates to Safe Voice, are you looking for me to just go through the information that's on that slide there? Okay.
Yeah, let's start with E225 and E490.
Okay, so again, Ryan Miller for the record. E225 essentially replaces funding from expired grants to fund 3 administrative assistant positions in support of the Safe Voice program. And then there is a separate, I think it's E490, that removes the expired grant funding in support of the program and is kind of the companion request. Just to kind of cover this briefly, when these programs were funded, or this program was funded, it primarily came from federal grant funds and then a state grant from DHHS, which was related to tobacco settlement funds. The funding that was associated with the federal grant expired, and now that funding has to be provided.
I'm just going to take a quick pause. We've got someone on the way to help you out. Oh, figured it out. Okay. Just kidding. Continue on.
I think that was pretty much it. Is that, again, that funding has expired, and now we're in a situation where we're looking to fund that with state general funds. I would note that when this funding was originally requested. The question came up, and when it was approved initially, I think it was back in 2018 and 19, and was in front of the legislative branch, there was a question about sustainment. And at that time, I even testified that eventually this would expire, and we would have to fund it with general funds likely if we wanted to continue the program. And that's essentially where we're at when we're talking about these positions.
Let's pause there. Any questions from members on the Safe Voice program funding change? Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I think I might have been present when that was initially in a different role in 2018. Has there been any discussion at all about possibly utilizing some of the newer grants that are coming out, such as I think it's Title 4A, as well as the STOP Act, which was actually announced here in Nevada just last March? Has there been any discussion at all about using any of those grants that are the federally funding and or other grants that possibly we could continue to utilize with matching funds?
Ryan Miller, for the record. I'm not familiar with either one of those programs. What I can tell you as it relates to this issue is that typically grants, federal grant funds, are not intended to sustain programs. They're intended to provide seed money to begin programs and provide data to determine if the state would want to continue that program in the future. I have confirmed that information with our Office of Criminal Justice Assistance, which primarily functions to obtain grants for criminal justice agencies, and they told me, one, yes, that's true, they don't sustain programs, and two, they typically do not want to fund programs that are required by state law. In other words, it's a state function at that point. And so that was really not an option. They did look to see if there was something, and they came up with one potentially related school safety grant, but they noted that the Department of Education was already receiving that grant, and they asked us to reach out to them. I have reached out to them, and they've advised that there isn't any funding. They don't have any funding available for us for these positions. They did actually last biennium provide some funding for that purpose, but I've been told it's not available this time.
Thank you, and not really a follow-up, but I really appreciate this as an educator. The Safe Voice has been a huge help for many students, and unfortunately with the increase of violence in our schools, I hope we continue to figure out ways to elevate it and utilize it. Thank you. It's so sad that we have to have it, but we do. Thank you.
Additional questions, members? Okay, look at us back on track. All right. I know. Yeah, now I just jinxed us. Sorry, everybody. We'll go ahead and turn to the next budget account. 101-3816. We have now the DPS Fire Marshal's budget account under review. Hello, welcome. If we could, we'd like to focus on the new administrative assistant position that you're requesting. And then I think members will likely have additional questions about several other kind of peripheral issues. So if you could just start by chatting a little bit with the new administrative assistant position E384, and then we can jump down into the details. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Mike Dezak, and I am your State Fire Marshal. And as far as that AA3 in its current situation is half FTE to the Investigation Enforcement Bureau and half FTE to Plans Review. And on the plan side, it's a fairly labor-intensive position because we're intaking both digital plans, we're intaking paper plans. If you've ever seen them, they're the size of telephone poles. We have to process those. That position has to take those, process them, log them. There's a lot that goes on with that. And what we found is that the persons that have been in that position that have promoted out of it, there's a lot of work there. What this will do by being able to separate enforcement from plans is that they can focus on that. They can help the bureau chief get the inspectors out there faster. We can get the plans done faster, more process, streamline, and that's really where our biggest challenge is. Our biggest challenge in this division right now is inspections and plan review. Did that answer your question?
It did. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, take note, anyone left. So, no, it's good because the questions might be a little bit longer, unfortunately. Can you tell me a little bit about what are the consequences of the review backlog of 6 weeks and an inspection backlog of 10 weeks? I know there's no statutory requirement as to how quickly those must be done, but if you could just talk a little bit about what happens or some of the unintended or consequences of it being so long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Mike Dezak for the record. I am proud to say that on our plans review backlog, we have whittled that down to about an average of 14 to 15 days. With the industry standard being 10, we are on track to make those progressions there. So inspections is a little bit different, but on the plan review side, we've wanted to approach all this in a prudent manner. We don't want to just go hiring people and throwing people at problems. We need to see what a person in that position does. So, as you know, we had struggles filling the plans examiner position. We got them in, we got them trained, and now we're starting to see the fruits of that labor and not having to rely as heavily on the contractors. It was not an easy task to get there, and in the end we ended up relieving the candidates of the burden of an ICC plans examiner certification. We said we will train them because of the pay. We couldn't hire anyone. We launched into the position. We got no candidates. No one wanted to come work for the state for the money that they could make in the cities and the counties. So we said, all right, well, then I guess we got to train them. But it takes time. You have to go through the process. And I'm proud of the job that we're doing there because, again, even with the inspectors that we've requested for the Las Vegas area, we need to see how much full-time inspectors do for us before we go any further with it. You know, how much time is that taking off? How many more statutory mandates are we able to get to? And ultimately, I would like to get to them all. I would like to be able to sit here and tell you we are handling every statutory mandate to the best of our abilities. But we just need to get back some more staff and then watch it, not do it all at once, add it in, see how it goes, and see what we need. The rurals tend to be the most travel intensive. I mean, you know, this is the 7th largest state in the United States, and we got an office in Carson, we got an office in Vegas. We used to have an office in Elko, but that didn't work out. Once our last guy there retired, we really had no way to train someone up in Elko. So everything has to come out of Carson. And the other thing that happened was last session we went completely fee-based. So that scared the hell out of all of us. That was a terrifying 4 months when we came out of the gate with $0 and having to make it to when our funding streams came in. So that's another, one of the challenges, but we've watched it. We've seen what's happening. We're making our adjustments, and that's our basic plan, my diabolical plan going forward. Did that answer your question?
Mostly.
Okay.
Mostly.
Okay.
We'll take it. We have diabolical plans of our own. So we'll bring it back together later.
Okay.
Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So kind of following up on this, it's great to hear about the reduction in the backlog. I know the last session we approved a plans examiner position. I think it took a while to get that position hired. But it sounds like it really has been helping since that position got on board to reduce the backlog. And so my kind of understanding is with this position, again, it's taking some administrative duties off to allow additional capacity to kind of address the backlogs both in plan review and inspections. And you did talk a little bit about this, about kind of the step-by-step approach, but you also did mention that probably there's a need for additional staff, and we'll probably continue to talk about this later on. But to put it in plain English, is this enough? Is this administrative assistant position enough, and taking those duties off of the inspector positions, is that enough to address the backlogs at this time?
Thank you. Again, Mike Dezak for the record. Is it enough in its totality? Probably not. Will it help from Carson? Now, remember again, what we're requesting is some more inspection support in Vegas. So now the Vegas office becomes a bigger entity. Instead of having a sergeant, an officer, and one full-time inspector down there, we're going to have 3 full-time inspectors. So will we eventually need to put an AA2 or something down there to help that office process? Maybe. This is a great first step. And again, I kind of like the approach of not just reacting to stuff. Let's get someone in there. Let's see how it affects it before I have to say, put my Swami hat on and go, yeah, that's not going to be, in the long run, probably not. We need more inspectors statewide. That will create more admin workload, but for right now, I think this is the prudent play. I would like to tell you, though, that position, the plans examiner position, approved by Ledge 7/2021, the authority to us granted 10/2021 in data warehouse. The position flown 12/21 to 1/22 with no applicants. We considered trying to raise the pay grade from a 36 to a 37 to address that, from 2.2 to 3.2, and that was denied. At that point, 4/22, we lowered the standards and removed the ICC certification. They have 1 year to attain the ICC certification. We were then able to hire from within the division, from the inspection ranks, that had a good Fire Inspector 2 background, Dave McGee, and he's hitting the ground running and doing great things. But that's an outline of how this played out for us. It was a ride, all in the middle of being fee-based and not having money. And
Thank you so much for that clarification. So, just to move back real quick and make sure there's clarification. So, tremendous difficulty in hiring the position, getting somebody to even apply. There was an attempt to increase the compensation to make it more attractive, and that was denied. And so then you had to come up with a plan B.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank
For the
you.
record, Mike Dezak.
Okay. Any additional questions from members? First, on the new administrative assistant position, Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just, as much of a comment as anything, Fire Marshal Dezak has done a great job. I've reached out to him a number of times. It is still a long ways from Las Vegas to Jackpot, or from Carson to Jackpot, Wendover, and he physically has to have people get out there to do those inspections. The plan review side, again, they've been very responsive when we had an issue. They seem to take care of it for us, but I understand what he's looking at. When you've got to spend 10 hours one way on the road to do an inspection, that takes time, and I think it's something we need to, if we're going to demand that they do the inspections and the plan review, then we're going to have to give them the people to put in place. And I would love to see something in eastern Nevada someplace, maybe, that shortens that windshield time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to what my colleague was talking about with the administrative assistant. Looking at their job responsibilities, there seems to be a lot of them, and we're seeing with other departments, they're actually changing classifications of employees because those responsibilities are so large. So do you feel that the administrative assistant is the right role, or should there be a different classification?
Thank you, Mike Dezak, for the record. I think it's the right role. The admin 3 there is a facilitator. It's a person that takes things in, that gets the work out. The bureau chief is the one who makes the assignments. There's more to it. Then we get variance requests. We get requests for code interpretations and things like that. And that position is takes them in, takes the phone calls, takes the complaints about safety violations, and then moves it on to the inspectors and plan examiners that are going to handle them, or myself in my office.
Okay, additional questions on this position? All right, don't go anywhere though. Could you give us a quick overview of the authorized reserve balance that you're looking to retain? And that may not be you, maybe it is. Okay. Can you just talk a little bit about that and what that looks like?
Absolutely, thank you. For the record, Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal. So, we are new at this. We just went 100% fee-based, and as I said, it was very scary. We don't see our first stable funding stream until about October when licensing starts coming in. So the point of when we roll over into a new fiscal year, we have only what sporadic plans came in. And we are trying to, again, be prudent to say, make sure we have enough revenue in the reserves to carry us to when those funding streams really start coming in. We also have to plan for the unknown. We don't know when employees are going to get raises and things like that, and those other costs that come down that we're not sure. So we want to make sure we have those fundings, and we need a couple legislative sessions to see what's happening. You know, to compensate for the general funding that was reduced, and to make sure that we can maintain a stable, that we can grow, that we can get to the point where Senator Gokachia said we're getting to all the inspections. We have a lot of duties and statutory mandates that aren't and can't be funded. We have to inspect all state facilities across the state. We have a matrix, but we don't receive any fundings. We don't bill the other agencies for those things. So we have to pay for those out of other funding streams. We have fire investigations throughout the state and arson investigations. And our investigators are top-notch and highly trained. And we don't receive compensation for those investigations. And as again, Senator Gokachia said, some of those happen in Jackpot and West Wendover and faraway places, and you have to factor in those items as well, the travel. I don't know how many, and the fiscal year starts in wildland season, so we don't even know how often the feds are gonna ask us to help with their investigations. We're adding a accelerant canine this year. We're hoping to add another one in the south, but the accelerant canine is also going to be looking for evidence. It's going to be not just ignitable liquids. It's going to be looking for fireworks. It's going to hit on mosquito coils, brake fluid, and chlorine, some devices that we tend to see in those. So now we've got a dog out there working. We anticipate we're going to get more calls for service, and so we have to at least plan for that and wait until we see that our funding streams are supporting it, and just cautious, I guess.
Do you have a slide that you could put up for us that shows what the projected reserve amounts are going to be by chance?
Yes. We didn't.
Okay, that's all right. That's okay. It was just a question.
We did say, Mike Dezak for the record, we did say the 120 days was just our projections. And we've only had 2 fiscal years to see what our expenditures looked like.
Okay, thank you. I'll take questions now at this time, if that's okay with you all. And we'll start with Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have so many questions. I mean, okay, so let's start. I get that the fee base is really scary. That would be really scary for me too. So 120 days, and you talked a little bit about that's just your you just pulled 120 days. Like, you need to have 3 months of operating revenue. The governor recommends additional days, right? So there's something that's different between the two. How did you come up with 120 days, and do you feel secure in that?
Thank you. For the record, Mike Dezak, State Fire Marshal. I wish I could tell you that I am a financial genius and put all this together. But in truth, we sat down with Chief Brueggemann, who's my fiscal mentor, and you have to come up with something. So we looked at October, we looked at our last 2 fiscal years, the scary ones, and I think with the plans review fee increase, I think we'll be okay. I don't. We have other areas we can draw from if it's not. Like I said, it's just a matter. Maybe I'm being overcautious, but I think that's okay.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious with those reserve funds, could they be used towards additional staffing to help you with that backlog?
Thank you. For the record, Mike Dezak. Absolutely. I have here, I think, do we have the org chart from, basically in the downturn, it was about 2010. We were at 35 full-time employees, and we were cut almost in half during that. And none of our statutory mandates were lifted. And as I became the state fire marshal, we have to look at getting back to at least those numbers to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. There are things that we simply cannot get to because of staffing that keep me awake at night. I know, and you can do so much. So I think going fee-based was smart and the right thing to do. I think the revenue streams can and will support it as we go forward. We just need to just take our time and watch it and add to those things. And I think eventually we're going to get there in a smart and efficient way and still maintain a state fire marshal that all of you would be proud of, that does what they're supposed to do, which is protect the public and protect our firefighters that go in and do that thing. And so, yeah, I do.
Okay. Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, and I echo Senator Gocachia's comments. You guys do a lot, and our state is quite massive, so I'm sure, like Senator Gocachia, you guys putting a lot of tires on your trucks. And I do have some concerns with some of the fees and how they have been implemented. During the December 28th LegCom meeting, we had R18322 that came up and was agendized for fireworks and fees. Except for when we actually had the presentation on that, and I know I brought it up then. It related to child care facilities and really changed the structure of how those fees were going to be from $22 to, in some instances, upwards of $300. And so I like to get some more information on how those fees were structured. There's a zip code breakdown of that. And also, I want to ensure that enough outreach was done to the child care facilities and that they were properly notified of those fee increases because it was agendized for us for fireworks and fees. And so I do want to make sure that they had the proper information presented to them beforehand. And then just one more question on that is that how many of these facilities were subject to the fee increase?
Thank you, Mike Dezak, for the record. So fireworks were taken off. We had some more work to do on some of those things, but they never changed the title of it. So we didn't have access to change that. But I have been in contact with Dan Pert and some members of the fireworks community, and we're having some good discussions on those for possible future issues. The fee increase for those, it's the Department of Health and Human Services that requests us to do those inspections on child cares, foster cares, things like that. We don't require them. And their statute says the state fire marshal will do those things. And as I testified earlier, I think it was about the mid-1980s when someone said it was $22. And when we can't do that for $22. It's not a huge part of our budget. I don't have the numbers. I will get you the numbers of those facility inspections that we've done. It's not a gargantuan amount, but you have to realize too, when we have to go and do a foster care in Elko, there's drive time, there's travel time, and sometimes there's only one or two. So you're faced with, do you let them wait until you have enough to justify the trip, or do you have to just send them up and do it? And I know from my last time in front of you, you weren't a fan of that, and I really wish that I would have known that. I could have invited you into the planning of how we came to that. We had to try to come to something that works across the whole state. You know, my offices are Carson City and Vegas, so we tried using zip codes to get there, and you didn't like that, and I'm sorry. It was not an intentional. This was not we're going to go and hike the rates up on kitty care facilities and foster cares, you know, and I can tell you that I'm having a meeting next week with DHHS. They have approached us to ensure there are not redundant inspections occurring. And it is my intention, they offered some potential things of letting their inspectors do it, and or letting local fire inspectors do those inspections. And I can tell you that while I'm not comfortable with their inspectors doing it, unless they're ICC certified, I am comfortable with certain fire departments that have a good prevention track record and they have the personnel to do that. They can do them. If I don't have to send someone out there, and I have, you know, City of Las Vegas, Reno, and they want to do those inspections, they will. I will grant my authority to do them. But we're going to sit down next week with DHHS, and we're going to work through some of that.
Thank you. And just for clarification, my concern wasn't, you know, the difference between Vegas and Elko. My concern was the difference between Pahrump and Pahrump having such almost double the fees depending on which side of the street you are on. And so that's where my concern came from, is why is that one side of the street substantially less than the other side of the street with no explanation? And that's why I did not support those regulations when they went into place, because I did have a serious concern with why one side of the street is being charged almost half of what the other side of the street is being charged. Because I completely understand the drive time, the windshield time, and the need for additional fees, but when the facilities are literally across the street, and I do not get an explanation of why that is, I cannot support something like that. Again, I completely understand Elko, Vegas. It takes a while to drive there. I mean, I'm not even sure your fees cover fuel at the price of gasoline today. So I want to clear on the record that my concern is one side of the street is almost half of what the other side of the street is in my hometown.
Yes, thank you, Mike Dezak, for the record. We ended up using zip codes, and at discussion with my staff, they said zip codes would get us there and get us to a place where it was reasonable enough to recover the expense of whatever it was we were doing. And while it probably, I didn't realize we were going to have one side of the street issues in Pahrump. On paper, it seemed appropriate. And again, we really don't do that many. And Chief Lewis and his department have an outstanding prevention, and they have training in it. And if he would like to do those inspections, I would grant him the authority to do. I already have an interlocal with Nye County. So you're laughing. That's never good. Thank you. Hope that answers your question.
And just for the record, in this committee at least, while I'm chairing, there's never any need to apologize to Assemblyman Hafen. Not required here. Senator Wynn?
Thank you. I don't mean to harp on what Assemblyman Hafen has already brought, but it was brought to my attention as well. I guess I have serious concerns just because I realize you may not have had any ability to control the language of how it was agendized on that Ledge Commission agenda. But when you put fireworks and you're impacting 488 statewide childcare facilities, when we have a childcare facility and childcare extreme drought, obviously that gives me a lot of concerns. When I look at the people that came and testified, when I look at the people that were notified, there is not one single child care like person that came, probably because it looks like it's fireworks and it's fireworks fees. I think even Assemblyman Hafen, when I talked to him offline, he had mentioned that the only reason it brought his attention specifically was because it's in Pahrump and fireworks are important. So he wanted to make sure that it was a fireworks, and what that meant. I had an opportunity to look into this a little deeper, and I looked at even the small business impact statement that was filed, and it said that the proposed regulations in this fee, which is not nominal, it's $1.4 million on the backs of like childcare facilities and foster care facilities. It said specifically that this did not impose a direct and significant economic burden on small businesses. And as we all know, these childcare facilities, they're not big business. They are small business. This is like the heart of our community. They're taking care of our children. They're allowing people to go back into the workforce and work. And as a mother, I know that these are like super important. And I'm looking at these ranges, and it's not just zip codes in like rural areas or areas like Pahrump. It's in my district in the center of Las Vegas. Like I'm in central Las Vegas, and there's significant things. And I just want to get it on the record, and I'm glad that you are continuing to have these conversations, because I don't feel like the people that were impacted by this significantly were incorporated in that conversation, because the fees and the increases, I realized that when it was determined that it was $22, decades ago, but that's a significant impact. It's upwards of minimum of 800% increase and a maximum of almost 1,600% increase on these small businesses that are doing childcare. So I'm glad to hear that you are continuing to do that, but it does look like that these fees and the increase in these fees are a $1.4 million aspect of, a $6 million second year biennium. So I would encourage you to keep looking at that. And hopefully those notice requirements were truly like an oversight, but I think it was a significant oversight that, will have lasting impacts on these businesses. Sorry, not really a question, more of a statement. So I appreciate the indulgence, Chair.
No problem. While we're on the issue of fees, can you just tell us a little bit about how the process of determining the level of fee increase that you would need in order to kind of delay services by adding staff, or prevent, anyway, the delay in services by adding some staff? And what conclusion did the agency reach regarding necessary staffing levels for your operations? So just can you tie the fee increase that you need with your staffing needs and put that together a little bit for us?
Yes, thank you, Mike Dezak, for the record. I would also like to go on the record that I had no control over the title of that. I did. Fireworks were initially part of it, but no, the fees were not just. I know we want to keep talking about child cares, but they're not just child cares. Those are also adult group cares. I don't have a list in front of me, but they do run the gamut.
And that's okay, because my question is about the broader
Right.
the broader level of all of the fees, since you've switched completely from general fund to fee funded. So you're covered.
Okay, thank you. Again, Mike Dezak for the record. We looked at what the current economic situation is, how much we pay the inspectors. Sometimes all of our investigators are also ICC certified inspectors, so they can go out and do those when, if they're the easiest one to get there. If they end up going up to a fire in Elko and, they're already up there and we have something we can give to them, they're perfectly capable of doing that. we had to look at fuel prices, the increases in everything, the reduction in the general funds, and make sure that we were solvent, that we were able to do that. And again, this is the inspections of these facilities. These are not annual inspections on any of the group care, child care, foster care. These are usually one time. They're requested to us by DHHS, and it's my hopes that, again, we sit down at the table with DHHS and figure out a way that I'm sorry.
Sherry Brigham, Deputy Director. For the record, I didn't mean to interrupt that you were going, but I just wanted to follow up with the question. Do our fees as they stand today, will they support our end result of a full staff, I believe is your question.
It's more about how the decisions were made, and you came to how you came to figure out, well, this is where we need to set our fees at in order to be able to meet our staffing needs and to be able to do our duties properly. So I'm more like backward looking, asking some questions about how you came to where we are with these numbers, if that makes sense.
Sherry Brigham, for the record. So, can you hear me? Okay. The fees in the past, when we were general funded and fee funded, each fee component fed one single operation. So if it was for inspections, it was the child care industry that paid for the inspections. And if we were short, oh well, too bad, no more inspections. Or if there was no other method, there was no other money to compensate those issues. And same for all of the fees, and there are a number of them, from hazmat to inspections to plans reviews, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of fees that come in. So the plan was, as we go through these through the years, is make the fees, since they have to match that particular source, live up to their needs. In these cases, the one that hadn't been touched is, in fact, these inspections. And as the fire marshal mentioned, the daycares and that sort of thing are usually opening daycares. They're like background, like one-time shots. That's it. And I am unaware of whether or not the daycare themselves pay for it or DHHS is part of the background. I'm sure it all rolls into something. However, that was our biggest backlog. As we mentioned, we have a number of inspections that are a backlog. And for our people to go and drive to those facilities was significantly more than what we were charging, $22, just not even close. So the determination to go by zip code was just a plan that I believe he discussed with the Board of Fire, thank you, with Albert. And I'm going to let him explain that detail, but the point is that it was just a plan to be consistent in terms of fees based on drive.
And that's okay. We'll leave it there for now. So thank you. Because we have another question, Senator Goycochea.
And again, thank you, Madam Chair. And it's more of a comment than, clearly, statutorily, you have to do, i.e. state facility inspections, a number of inspections that do not have a fee associated with them. And this is the Finance Committee, and it's going to take some general fund, folks. We can't ask the fees to pay for all these additional duties. And again, they've been very responsive, and I appreciate the fact that you might have an inspector in Elko that'll, up on a fire and end up in Wendover doing an inspection on a fire plan check or whatever on a casino in Wendover. But it all takes time. And again, you are there investigating a fire. That's on the state nickel, and yet that fee that's paid in Wendover is going to cover that cost. It's not fair to our constituents. With that, I'll close. And this is the Finance Committee. We're going to have to look at, you need some general fund support as well. Thank you.
Chair Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Going back to what Chair Harris was discussing, I think and again, going back to some of the things that I asked about earlier in terms of staffing sufficiency, in terms of the context you provided about the cuts that were made during the recession, about losing sleep at night over the ability to meet certain statutory requirements. I want to kind of take us back up to a higher level. So with the fee structure that's currently in place, it looks like there is enough to meet the new position that's been proposed, and to go above and beyond the current projected necessary reserve level to help get you through the fiscal year. I guess since there's been some comments, I'll start with that as a question. Is that correct?
Mike Dezak, for the record, that is correct.
Thank you. And then going back to what you discussed about those needs, I guess to put a really fine point on it, outside of this position, this enhancement that's proposed, what would be the next need? What would be the next position that your office would need in order to perform your statutory duties and get your office's staffing levels back to where they need to be in order to serve the state?
Thank you. For the record, Mike Dezak. I would say this is going to be off the top of my head because, and I'm do my best. I would say probably one more plan reviewer will be in the future. But again, we pay into the contract. So that FTE, if there's someone sitting there full-time doing plans, will get us below the industry standard of 10-day turnaround times. And I think that would be perfect for the plan review. On the inspection side, I would like to see what the inspectors do down there. We lost our only full-time inspector. We just hired someone. He's going through backgrounds. I would like to see what those two positions do for us down there. In the north, I would see probably one more inspector, and then we can look at it. We can see, does the reopening of an Elko office save us money in the long run? Is it cost effective to have an inspector and one or two investigators up in Elko that? Yeah, we can look at that, and those are definite options. I wish I could tell you I have all the answers and I can see it. I feel comfortable that where we sit right now, we will not need to do any increases, or we have enough, I think, to get there now. And the goal is going to be to do it smart and just make sure we don't overextend. Make sure we get to those places that keep me awake at night, and that I think is the biggest picture I can give you.
Thank you very much for that, and again, we appreciate that. I think we share in that goal, and I look forward to some continued conversations around how we can make progress towards that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, additional questions from any members? All right, good news for you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. That's right. There you go. Okay, we'll go ahead and now turn to budget account 101-4688, which is highway safety planning and administration. Miss Davy, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I realize I'm the caboose. How fast is the train moving?
Very quickly. If we could stop at new grants and project analyst position station.
Thank you.
That would be great. And then we can maybe get this train on out of here.
All right. Very good. Thank you. We can forward to slide number 9 then, if you would. This is really our only budget enhancement request of any note, which is E225, and we're requesting the addition of a Grants and Projects Analyst 3. Our office has 13 FTE. and we have numerous federal requirements in addition to all of our programmatic work. I wanted to just quickly touch on slide 9 because it does talk about our funding, which is important when we bring forward this decision unit to you. Our funding is about 95% federal funds that we receive through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Much of that funding is passed through to local jurisdictions, local community groups and community efforts, law enforcement agencies, and other safety professionals. In 2021, Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, and this authorized a once-in-a-generation investment of $350 billion in highway programs, and it created more than a dozen new highway programs. The Nevada Office of Traffic Safety has begun receiving several millions of additional dollars over the term of the law to implement traffic safety and traffic data programs and align our state with the National Roadway Safety Strategy. In the first year of the new appropriations, which was 2022, our federal funds increased by 28%, and we anticipate continued 2% year over year through 2026. We're currently bringing in approximately $12 million annually in grants and contracts, and this is anticipated to grow, as I mentioned, through 2026. The Office of Traffic Safety budget is comprised, as I said, of primarily federal funds. And our state funds that you see in our budget are designated to meet the required federal funds match. If you move then to the next slide, which are the enhancement requests, E225 is a request for a federally funded Grants and Projects Analyst 3. As I referenced briefly in the previous slide, our federal funding requirements are extensive and have increased with the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's referred to as BILL. The final regulations for the new program requirements were recently received by us and provided us with 250 pages of new guidelines in addition to our existing federal guidelines. I made copies for all of you, and I'll make sure to bring those forward at the end. This is in addition to our existing requirements, and some examples of the new requirements include development of a triennial highway safety plan, annual funding report, annual performance report, increased performance measure development and tracking, new programs and funding opportunities around roadside safety, unattended vehicle passengers, community engagement and public participation, and education for law enforcement officers and citizens on traffic stop procedures. It's these requirements, along with the U.S. DOT's renewed emphasis on addressing traffic safety, that frame our primary enhancement request, which is that Grants and Projects Analyst 3. That position will oversee implementation of new federal funding requirements and coordination of the Triennial Highway Safety Plan, as well as provide coordination of new and existing program requirements. And we propose to fund this position fully with federal funds.
Great, thank you. We have a couple of questions. I'll start with Senator Nguyen.
Thank you. How would the new Grants and Projects Analyst position assist with addressing the required directives of the 2021 Congressional Bipartisan Infrastructure Law?
Thank you for the question, Amy Davey, Office of Traffic Safety. As I mentioned, there are numerous new funding opportunities available to the state and numerous new program requirements. The GPA 3 position is intended to we have two ways that we fund positions in our agency. Primarily, we fund them through federal funds, and when you fund them through federal funds, the focus has to be on those, what the federal dollars require and what those program requirements. So the position is really built around implementation of those federal requirements, including the triennial highway safety plan that we're required to provide and performance tracking. So that position is intended to work with our GPA 2s, Grants and Projects Analyst 2s, on their program implementation and on ensuring that the highway safety plan elements are achieved and performance measures are tracked and achieved.
Thank you.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the quick presentation, but very informative as well. I have two questions for you. The first, you had mentioned that some of the grants that you administer, you're more of a pass-through to the counties, possibly cities as well. With that pass-through, with those pass-through grants, what is the percentage or is there a percentage that the state utilizes as well, like keeps back for themselves, like 10% or 12% or whatever the case may be? And then the other question is, how many grants does the agency receive? And this is going to be tough. How many sub-grants does it administer?
Thank you for the
Don't worry,
question.
you don't have to title them all off for us, because I can just imagine how bad that is.
Oh, thank you for the question, Amy Davey, Office of Traffic Safety. I have that information. We thought about that and anticipated that in advance. In terms of the state match requirement, I think was your question about what we have to reserve for state activities or for the administration of the office. That is prescribed by our NHTSA rules, and it's what we call P&A. It's a pot of federal funds called Planning and Administration. And per those federal guidelines, we are allowed to retain 50% of 15% of one of our funding streams. Yes, it gets really complicated. There are 14 funding streams. Between 11 and 14 funding streams, the BIL will add some additional funding streams. They have an interesting way of doing our programs, which is every focus area has its own funding stream. But in terms of the state match, it is 50% of 15% of one of the funding streams, which is, I want to say that one is probably around $3 million annually. So that's what we reserve for the administration of the program. You asked about our grants. There's 11 to 14 grants at any given time that come into us. Additionally, we apply for other types of grants, private organizations that offer grants for traffic and roadway safety, and other sources of grants that we can access. In terms of our pass-through partners, you're correct. We have partners, cities, counties, law enforcement, universities, school districts, just a multitude of local community organizations, foster kinship organizations, community centers that provide child passenger safety seat installation services. And for this year, we counted somewhere between 120 and 170 subrecipient programs.
Thank you. Follow up, if I may. Thank you. That's great information. From those pass-throughs, is there any of that you also keep in the department for administrative issues or for administrative fees and everything like that to help pay for that? Especially when it's going to the cities, counties, universities, and school districts in particular, not necessarily the child care areas.
Thank you for the question, Amy Davey, Office of Traffic Safety. Our federal requirements allow us we have two ways we can meet our administrative costs. One is the one that I described, which is through that P&A. The other one is we are allowed to charge indirect. So if you're familiar with federal grants, there is an indirect cost rate that is applied to any type of federal grant. However, charging indirect on all of those individual funding streams is both complicated and at the end of the day, doesn't really benefit the program. We're able to meet our requirements through the required state P&A match. We're able to meet our administrative costs, and that allows us to pass more through to our subrecipient programs.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that clarification.
All right, we'll go to Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Chair. I just was curious if this new grants and project analysis will provide enough resources to support the new federal directives and bring the current programs up to adequate coverage.
Thank you for the question, Amy Davey. Would you put the org chart up? One of the unique benefits that our agency is able to utilize that increases efficiency and effectiveness of our budget is we use some of our federal funds for what we call contract positions rather than establishing state FTEs. All of these various funding sources come with specific programmatic requirements. And so we actually have added a position recently related to some new bill requirements called Community Engagement and Diversity Outreach Coordinator. And that position we added 100% federally funded through what we call a contract position. So to respond to your question, Assemblywoman Gorlow, I think with the renewed focus that we're seeing on public safety, roadway safety, community safety types of activities, more staff is always, a real blessing to be able to implement those initiatives. I'm bringing forth the GPA as a state-funded position because I really feel, not a state-funded position, but a state FTE. I really feel that it provides a key coordinating role. But some of those other staffing issues that you're maybe alluding to, I am able to fill through contract positions. And some of them are highly specific. It's hard to hire a law enforcement liaison in the state classification system. There's no state classification for a law enforcement liaison or a judicial outreach liaison or those kinds of roles that our federal partners like to see us perform in.
Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that clarification about your contract positions. My question is relative to your grant writers. They're typically very technical in nature, so they're grant writers and administrators. I'm curious to know, do you have any interaction with the Governor's Office of Grants? Are you hiring those? Are they state personnel? Are they contracted positions? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Thank you for the question, Amy Davey, Office of Traffic Safety. A lot of the Yes, you're absolutely right. It is highly technical work. We're fortunate in that our federal partners, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, support all highway safety offices, and every state has a state highway safety office. They're located in different departments. Ours is in the Department of Public Safety, but because of the vast amount of regulations and requirements and people throughout all the states that are working on these programs, NHTSA has supported us with a lot of very precise training for our grant writers. A lot of the grant writing is done by me, it's done by my deputy administrator, and it's done with the support of our program staff, and they all receive this very specialized training. In terms of coordinating with the state grants office, every state agency that is involved in grant work is interacting and coordinating with the state grants office, just per process and requirement. So we are, we're working with them on things like developing procedures and policies and those kinds of things. But we have been fortunate in that we are able to do a lot of training in our agency to produce that kind of skill set.
No, thank you. I can personally attest, I think this department is more adept at seeking some of those federal funds than others, so I appreciate that. Additional questions? Okay, awesome. Well done. Thank you so much.
The train has arrived.
The train has arrived at the station with 2 minutes for public comment. Just kidding. Each person will have 2 minutes, but really we are finished, and so I'll relieve you all. You can go sit down, relax. If there's anyone here in Carson City who'd like to make public comment, feel free to come on up. I will give each of you 2 minutes. Okay, not seeing anyone. Anyone down south? Okay. Confirmation from the director, we're good to go. Thank you, sir. BPS, can we just quickly check the phone, see if anyone is on the phone line who'd like to make a public comment with us today?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
And right on time, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Take that, Chair Watts.